Okay, welcome to the FAIRmat tutorial number 8 on using NOMAD as an electronic lab notebook for FAIR data. The tutorial is organized by FAIRmat Area A Synthesis. Yeah, my name is Sebastian Brückner. I am the coordinator of FAIRmat Area A Synthesis, and I am also working at the IKC Berlin on digitalizing the research data management there. Yeah, I will give a short introduction to the topic before I hand over to my colleagues for the tutorial lessons. All necessary information to follow the tutorial are available on the FAIRmat tutorial website. If you have questions, please type them in the Zoom chat or ask them during the questions and answers part. The presentation part of the tutorial will be available also later on the FAIRmat webpage and YouTube channel. Okay, so I will show. So we will show in our tutorial how to make use of the ELN functionality in NOMAD. So I hope you heard about NOMAD. NOMAD is the research data management tool we develop in FAIRmat, and the ELN functionality was shown for the first time in the tutorial number 2 last year. And since then, we made a lot of progress, and today we want to focus on the usage of it. Okay, so let me start with the introduction to the tutorial. So at present, the research data management situation at many institutes looks like this. So there is data in spreadsheets, there are file servers with folder structures and files, and there are also handwritten lab notes. So some data is organized individually, other data is organized by group conventions or even on an institute level, but you can summarize that most data is unstructured, and as a consequence of this situation, data is often not well accessible and findable. Data are not well characterized, data are not linked to other data, they are not interoperable and reusable, and they are really not machine readable. Yeah, so in a good research data management situation, we would like to have our file server with all the raw data connected to a database via an ELN, so an electronic lab notes book. We would capture all the data and metadata during an experiment to avoid paper-based notes. And then we want to apply artificial intelligence tools or machine learning tools on the data. So the key point here is that the ELN is the interface to the database, and so it is more than just a simple substitution of written lab notes. And in order to benefit from machine readability, artificial intelligence, machine learning at the end, it is required that the ELN entries are based on a structured approach which connects collecting of data and metadata with a data structure. And so that means that just digitizing data by an ELN, so from handwritten to something electronic written, is not enough to make the data machine readable, obviously. So, and unfortunately, most available ELN solutions do not give much support to collect structured data or to support a data model in an ELN entry. And this is exactly where we came up with the idea in FAIRmat to extend our NOMAD platform with ELN functionalities, since NOMAD already supports structured data. And so this is what it looks like at the end, the structured data in NOMAD. So we will focus today in this tutorial how to make use of these ELN functionalities in NOMAD, which is based on structured data. Okay, so just before we speak about the ELN, let me quickly explain the terms NFDI, FAIRmat, and NOMAD. So NFDI is the Nationale Forschungsdateninfrastruktur. And within the NFDI, FAIRmat is a consortium for fair material science data. And NOMAD is a web-based service and software for managing fair material science data. And in FAIRmat, we use NOMAD to build a federated infrastructure of connected NOMAD installations. So NOMAD is now run by FAIRmat and developed by FAIRmat in short. Okay, so FAIRmat is based on values, which are, of course, the FAIR principles. So you probably have heard often about the FAIR principles, since if this is not your first tutorial here. So FAIR stands for findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Then we support a bottom-up approach. That means our developments are based on the needs of scientists and their related field, and we strongly support their communities. And also we highly support open access. So we support an urgently needed cultural shift towards data sharing. Yeah, let me go a little bit more deeper on this bottom-up approach. So in FAIRmat, it looks like this, that we have local domain experts with very domain-specific needs for data management. So for example, we have someone who is an expert in growing specific crystals at an institute, but this persons, they lack of research of an improved research data management. And this is where FAIRmat jumps in by providing help by data scientists or data stewards to develop solutions for them. And so our people are experts in data modeling and ontologies, but they really require the input from those from the users, from the experts in their fields, to develop at the end really useful solutions and not something that might be unused or not practical at the end. Okay, so a little bit more about FAIRmat. So FAIRmat, as I said, is an NFDI consortium, and it consists of different areas to cover the all aspects of material science. That means we have area A for synthesis data, area B for experimental data for measurements. Then we have area C dealing with theory or computational data, and area D who develops the infrastructure. So they are the one who develop the NOMAD software. And then we have area E who is working on use cases that should showcase the use of our developments. Then we have area F for training and outreach, and area G who is coordinating the whole project. And as I said, NOMAD is a web-based software for fair research data management in material science. And it was established already for computational material data, and where users can publish, analyze, and explore data. And now we use NOMAD in our different areas. And with the help of area D, we make sure that this tool can really handle all our different needs regarding data. So you can access NOMAD via the web page, which is this one. And you might have noticed that we have a brand new web page. It was just launched this week, I think. So we have now a new logo and a completely new site structure. So I hope you like the new and improved structure of our homepage. It's important to note that NOMAD is free to use. So you just need to register, you get an account, and you can get started right away. Let's focus a little bit more on the details of NOMAD. So as I said, it was established for computational material science data. And now we're extending it for any data from material science. And you can easily upload your data. If you want, you can publish your data, and then you get a DOI to your data. You can control what and when you want to publish, or which part of your data you want to publish. And you can also use tools to analyze your data. For example, we also have now a Jupyter Hub directly available in the NOMAD service. So you can really analyze all the data on the whole, on the same platform. The key point is that NOMAD works with structured data. So that means that the data requires a data schema which describes the data and its structure. So this is really the key point of the whole system, I would say. And so we do have parsers that can deal then with raw data, and which bring them into the structured data form. And then also the ELN is directly connected to the data structure, so that the data that you input is directly structured from the beginning on. And this is where we will focus today on in this tutorial, so that you understand how this works and how you can make use of it. Okay, and as I said, NOMAD was built to share data and now we also focus on collecting data, which is quite some effort. And here the NOMAD Oasis concept is quite important. So the Oasis has the same functionality as a NOMAD, but it runs on your own servers. Yeah, so you have it on your own servers with your own rules, your own access rights, and so on. And it supports custom ELNs. You can extend it by your own parsers and your own data tools. And it will soon be connected to the central NOMAD service so that you can then decide which data you want to push to the NOMAD service. To explain this a little bit better, I have this picture here. So this is how the central NOMAD service works. So you have your data on your hard drive, for example, you upload it. You can then decide to publish it in NOMAD, and then anyone can explore it if it's published. And you can also analyze the data. And the NOMAD Oasis is, so to say, in between. So it's in your private local network, for example. You can then upload your data there. It's only there at your institute or organization, wherever your NOMAD Oasis is running. And from here, you can already analyze the data, or you can still decide then to publish your data, and then you can combine the data from NOMAD and from your NOMAD Oasis. So this is the concept of NOMAD and NOMAD Oasis. Okay, so one last point I wanted to bring up is data modeling and research data management. So this is where Andrea will go into more depth in the second part of the introduction. So in NOMAD, we have the following data workflow. So we have raw data, we have data from ELN, and data from data analysis. And all this different data and metadata are connected to a data model, which is in the ideal case a standardized data model from a community. And what we get from that is structured data that can be used in NOMAD to be searched, visualized, and analyzed. And today we will focus on that ELN part and how this is connected to a data model and structured data. Okay, so that brings me to the end of my part. So this is the Area A team that we are 5 people. We have Andrea, Hampus, Pepe, and Florian, who are our data experts, and me coordinating our Area A work. And we will show you today this tutorial with the following program. So first of all, the goal of our tutorial is to get you started for using NOMAD and its ELN functionalities. We want to show you what it means working with structured data from the beginning on. And the tutorial is aiming for any material scientist interested in improving their research data management, but of course also data stewards or people that work already with data. And we will first give you more details and more definitions about structured data. So this will follow now by Andrea. And then Florian will show you how the workflow of NOMAD is. And this is where you will also get active and also get your hands on the NOMAD software yourself. Then Hampus will show you how to write a simple data schema and how this is then displayed as an ELN. And then it will get a little bit more challenging in these 2 parts. So first we will then have again Andrea, who show you how to make use of our tabular parsers so that you can make use of CSV and Excel files in NOMAD, and how to add automated plots in your ELN. Hampus will then show the strengths of our base classes and also explain what it means, and make use of referencing to other data entries. And so these 2 are a little bit more challenging. And then at the end, Pepe will show you how you can search and browse your ELN data. Okay, so this is our program for today. Please make sure that you downloaded it already, the tutorial material. If you have not found the link yet, maybe someone can post it once more in the chat. And please also register for NOMAD already, so you are ready to start. And we also have breakout rooms. So as you see here, we have like in the interactive part, if there are like detailed questions or you want to share your screen in a safe environment, let's say, you can also make use of a breakout room and meet one of us there. Okay, so thank you for attention. That was my part. If there are already questions, we could answer a few questions, and then we could go directly on with Andrea's talk. Maybe one last word. So as you see, there is no real break in between, but it's more like that. It's like 15 minutes lecture and then like 15 minutes hands-on, which you can of course also use for a coffee break if you need to grab something. Okay, thank you. That was my part.
So hello everyone, and I will show in this second part of the introduction a little bit the basic concepts that are connected to structured data. So once again, I will start telling the main reasons that make the structured data important. So first of all, the structure highlights the relationships between data and disclosing the interoperability of different data sets. So this first point here is making also the data machine readable. And after that, the machine readability is also closely connected to the possibility of applying AI methods to our data. So further advantages that one can get with structure are also the searchability of data and also the shareability due to their standard structure that make them homogeneous across the database and interpretable by other people too. So I will now describe the diagram that was already presented by Sebastian. And here I am showing the main sources of data that are usually mainly these three. So first of all, we have the raw data that can be from log files, from instruments, or from recipe files, or also from spreadsheet files that are maybe automatically printed by an instrument or also filled directly by the operator. After that, we also have the data and metadata that we might enter manually through the ELN. And also we have other data that are coming usually from the post-processing softwares or scripts that actually provide the final figures of merit that we want to extract from an experiment. So these are the main three sources. And all these three should converge into a standardized data model that collects both data and metadata from our experiment. So at this point, it is worth it to stop briefly and specify these two concepts of data and metadata. So data are actually the actual content of information. Here, for example, we have an X-ray diffraction spectrum that is generated from these two columns here, X and Y arrays that you can see. While the metadata are still defined as data, and they provide information about other data. So there is some more specification needed on the metadata. And indeed, when we talk about structural metadata, we talk about something that provides information about the containers of data. In this case, the two containers are these two variables, two theta and the intensity, and both of them should be decorated with some further information giving, let's say, which unit we are using or which type, or maybe the description to understand without ambiguity which is this variable. Another kind of structural metadata is also the list of information that we get whenever we upload one file in NOMAD, for example, and we generate an entry in NOMAD. So these kind of metadata are useful specifically for database purpose, and let's say they are less connected to the scientific use. What is really important here is the descriptive metadata, and is also one of our main goals. And we work indeed for extending the set of collected metadata and also to make them structured to complement the actual data. Some example that I put here can range from the simple date of the experiment to more complex part of information, such as the instrument specification, or maybe some relevant metadata for specific experiments, such as the humidity in the room. Yes, and indeed, we try to design a data schema where all these parts are connected together. So data and metadata should be like gathered in a cohesive set of data. So the next step is usually the implementation of tools that can exploit this structure to yield features such as searchability, visualization, or automation of the analysis. And we try to implement this in NOMAD. And as also Sebastian already said, we follow a bottom-up approach. That means that the implemented tools are shaped on particular and real needs detected from single use cases with the aim of acquiring more generality with time. So The design of this schema actually implies the knowledge of two concepts, that is the difference between schema and template. The schema is indeed, as in this metaphor here, like a formal description of data and metadata. And in our context, so in the context of a database, the blueprint can be, for example, an XML file or also a YAML file, as we will see later. And from this schema, we can generate a template that is a real object that is instantiated from that schema. So the template will be filled with data and it will become a structured archive file. So here it's important to drag again the attention on the word structure, and just to explain better what do we mean with structure. And structuring indeed means to give a hierarchical organization. In this example, I am just attempting to describe a sample. So I exploit this parent-child relation to build a tree of sections connected, dividing, let's say, the information in different sections. And yeah, so as I mentioned already, we can use all these kind of file formats to describe such structures. And these are called, yeah, these are the general markup language file formats. In our case, we choose to use YAML file, so this specific file format, because yeah, it presents all the advantages of a markup language. So it is extensible in the sense that, as you can see, we may also hit enter at whatever point and start adding new information. So this is the extensibility. And also it is a simple plain text. So this makes it easy to write it. And other advantages of the YAML is that, for example, the hierarchy is simply translated as an indentation. So these lines that you see here are just due to the editor that I used, but this is just a plain text, and the indentation actually has a meaning. And so YAML in general gives the advantage of being human readable and easy to write. That's why we are trying to write our own schemas with this file format. As Hampus will show later, such YAML files can be uploaded in NOMAD, so written, uploaded in NOMAD to get a custom configuration of our ELN. And as you can see here on the right side. So I will briefly show you the main elements characterizing this YAML file. So the first thing is the quantities that are the fundamental data fields containing the informations, so the numbers that we want to put into our ELN. And then we have the attributes that are part of that structural metadata that I already mentioned before. After this, we also have sections that are also called classes, if we want to refer to a more Pythonic language. And these are simply collection of quantities in our case. So you can check out some of the schemas that we already designed for several use cases in this GitHub repo here. And you can also feel free to upload them in your NOMAD just to give a try, and also to write into the repo maybe issues if you want to discuss something together. So the main approach that we follow in writing a schema is, again, the bottom up that was already mentioned. And so looking at several use cases, one can sketch a common pattern among them and start drawing some hypotheses of data modeling that then can be assumed to have a higher generality and broader validity. So to close the path, one can also use this principle back to structure new use cases. So this is our iterative development that we are following. So the way that we have to acquire generality is boiling down the data structure to elemental building blocks that should be present in each and every experiment that we can face. So these classes or sections will contain a standardized set of properties. The great advantage from specifically our implementation point of view of these base classes is that we can stick to each of these base class a standard processing of these properties that can affect, for example, the searchability within the database, or can also allow some automation in the workflows. So this is actually a modular approach that allows to compose schemas in a very flexible way. And in this slide here is not important the actual structure of the two schemas that are reported, but the fact that the building blocks shown with different colors can be used arbitrarily in each of them. So the standardization level that we look for will still be preserved within the single building blocks in these schemas that we can compose at will. So I need now to introduce some more vocabulary that is connected to the kind of relationship that we must use to build such a schema. And yeah, indeed, a very important one is the inheritance that we can describe with the is-a operator. Indeed, we can create a section, for example, here, my Gauss meter, that we want to inherit from an existing and maybe more general one that is instrument. So in this case, all the properties are transferred from the general section to the specific one. And yeah, so another kind of relationship that we have is the composition, where we imply the has-a operator. An experiment, for example, will always contain an instrument or a sample or a user and so on. So this is the parent-child relation that I also showed before in the red tree branching from the sample. So these two relationships are used in our schemas, and we find them exactly in these lines here within each section that we want to define. For example, here, I want to define my specified process, and yeah, so here we go. Yes. So the composition, as you can see, is just here where we have a list of quantities and subsection, while the inheritance is contained in this list of base sections that we want to indicate. Okay, so yeah, this is how the data model tree that we are generating looks like today. And it's not important at this stage, the actual structure, because we are still defining it. And the only point to notice here is that the relationships that I showed can give rise to a pretty articulated data structure. But the final user usually must not be aware of what is behind. Indeed, only the leaves of this tree will be the ones directly appearing and to be used in the daily workflow. So if you want to get involved or raise maybe some doubts, you can write to our coordinator or directly to one of us, or also check our GitHub repos that I texted here. And yeah, to conclude, I just want to thank our Area D team that, and I'm showing here a part of it. And they are the actual people that are developing the tools that I just presented. So thank you for your attention, and yeah, the introduction is finished.